Fala pessoal do SharpCast, bem-vindos aqui ao nosso terceiro episódio. Hoje estou com a presença ilustre aqui do Lucas, que ele vai estar me ajudando a conduzir essa entrevista aqui com o Jeevan. Ele trabalha como provider na Abelson e principalmente no mercado de anytime, que eu sei que muitos de vocês aí gostam. Vou passar para o Luquinha se apresentar aí, para vocês conhecerem ele um pouco.
Fala galera, bom dia, meu nome é Lucas, igual o Divinão falou aí. Eu estou mais ou menos uns 5, 6 anos aí nesse mercado das apostas esportivas. Não me considero um apostador de fato. Eu tenho atuado mais ali nos bastidores disso. Estou há bastante tempo aí com o Caio, que é o embaixador desse podcast aí. Então, tenho atuado mais na parte aí de modelos estatísticos, na parte mais do business do negócio. Então, é isso aí. Estamos aí hoje para entrevistar o Jeevan, que vai ser um papo bem legal.
Okay. And Jeevan, tell us something about your start in betting. How do you start? Where you used to bet and things like that.
Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to England. I started in my betting career about 16, 17 years ago, working in retail shops for William Hill, big brand in the UK, 2,000 retail outlets. And then I quickly progressed to a company in Birmingham, near where I live, who actually produced the odds as opposed to just working behind taking the bets. We actually produced the pricing for other independent shops within the UK mainly, but we also printed coupons for the shop. So if you went into the shop, you had a coupon and you could mark off who you want to win. You've seen a similar concept. We also got asked to provide coupons for stadiums. So if you wanted to go to watch Manchester United and you wanted to have a bet within the stadium, you could bet on the coupon in the stadium with a retailer within the stadium. And to make those coupons more interesting, we devised an idea, and this is years ago, even before I joined the company, of adding goal scorer prices to those coupons as an option for people to bet on. It wasn't very popular at the time, and this is all before pre-internet. Okay, so it's got there was no internet, no online betting. So we started to do that, and then we realised that this was actually really popular with our operators, who we were providing pricing through a company called Super Soccer Odds Feed. So the bigger companies, William Hill, Coles, Ladbrokes in the UK, were using our goal scorer prices more and more. So we expanded the team a little bit, expanded the coverage a little bit, and then we were contacted by Abelson, my current employer, who said we do settlement of markets, and we think that with your feed, which our feed was just on Excel sheets sent out via email, they said we think that we can provide an API feed using your pricing. We will settle the markets, and we'll also provide the technical aspects of the feed. So the partnership began between Super Soccer and Abelson. Abelson had got a system whereby they could bring in an Opta data feed, which would then automatically settle the markets as the games progressed. And that's a system we still use to this day. So this product started to go pretty well. We picked up a few more clients. And then in 2017, I suggested to Ed Abelson, who runs Abelson, that everyone would benefit from Abelson taking over control of the whole of the situation of the business, because the Super Soccer business was slowing down because the internet was coming, so the retails were closing. So we joined forces in 2017 when we had 4 staff, 4 compilers, odds compilers. We now have 13 odds compilers. And the business has expanded to current coverage is 136 competitions over 34 countries. And the latest ones we've added, Ecuador Liga Pro, Canadian Premier League, and new for August, the Saudi Pro League.
In Abelson, you are odd maker, right?
Yeah.
It's just for any time markets or another markets too?
No, we provide pricing for 18 pre-match markets. So first goal scorer, anytime goal scorer, last goal scorer, score 2, score 3, first team scorer, score and win, draw, score and win, lose, score and win.
Okay.
Score first and win, score first and draw, lose. Score both halves, outscore opposition, and now we do also player carded, player red card, that kind of thing. But essentially, to compile all of those markets, they're just derivatives of the original market, apart from the cards ones. Yes, then we provide. I can explain to you exactly how we go about that process.
Okay, but could you explain the price creation process? Of course, without the secrets, right? Just a vision about that. What's go through the mind of the provider odds, right?
Yeah. So to produce goal score odds, first of all, you need an algorithm that is based on a Poisson distribution of sorts. Okay. So once you've got someone skilled enough to write you a distribution algorithm, the components that you need to input into the algorithm are supremacy and expectancy lines. So what we do is we use we have a deal with Pinnacle. So we use lines from Pinnacle, Asian handicap lines from Pinnacle. They come into our system. We then derive the full-time and half-time goal expectancies for each team off the back of those lines, okay? So once we've got a value for each team's goal expectancy, then we can add those into the algorithm. And then the subjective part, I'd say that part is quantitative, but because they're sharpened, they're the industry standard lines. So really, for me, they're a marker. But the more subjective part of it is where we add a percentage for each player within the team, and that percentage is to reflect the amount of goals of the total you think that player is worth.
Okay, so besides the expected goals that you make for each team, you have the expected goals for the player too, right?
Correct. And then what that does is when you combine that together, you can have you have a figure for the expected goals per player.
Yeah.
And if you have that figure, then you can put that input into the algorithm, and the algorithm can use the distribution to spit out all of the different markets that we create. It provides the probabilities, which we then convert into prices. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the part of the compiler, the subjective part, to decide what percentage a player is worth within his team, and that's the bit that can change from week to week.
Yeah, but the subjective variables, it's kind of 50-50 with quantitative methods, or not?
Yeah, of course.
So.
It's back. Yeah, of course. There's we're not just going picking a number out of the air. It's of course based on statistics and research, but it's not automated. So there's still a subjective element. The compiler still will choose the percentage he wishes to go. He'll have looked at the evidence, but we don't crunch huge numbers here to provide these prices. We can look at a player, look at his performance, shots, how many shots per 90, how many goals, position on the pitch, that kind of thing, and then equate a position around that using the percentage. And that's essentially what we do. Let me give you an example about an example using a Brazilian team of how something could be affected. So if you think about a player in a team, an outstanding goal scorer in a team. In this instance, I use Tiquinho Suarez from Botafogo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we use him, so he's top goal scorer in Serie A.
I guess so.
Yeah, and he's taking out for Botafogo. We have him taking out 35.5% of the total Botafogo goals for any given match at this time. Okay,
it's for him, right?
For him, just for him, 35.5%. So if we know that and this is where the Abelson intelligence will come in. If we know that he is injured or suspended for a particular game, then we have to reshape all of the other players around him, because he won't be included, but his replacements, such as Matheus Nascimento and Janderson, they're not of his same quality, right? They're not going to be worth 35% themselves. So you can't just bring them in at 35% and say it's a replacement, because there'll be lots of value elsewhere in the bottom of the team. So if that's the case, that Suarez is missing, then we will boost all of the other players around to get to the 100% of the total goals total, which is the objective of the compiler. When the compiler is giving the percentages, they're predicting the starting 10 outfield players. If you can predict around the 10 start outfield players, then you can get that percentage to total around 100% of the total team goals. And that's the objective of the compiler. If the case is that Suarez is missing, then it's likely that if left alone, that percentage is going to be under 100%, because you might have Matheus Nascimento in for 20%. So you might have a 15.5% differential there, where actually there'll be some value in there somewhere for some of the other players. So you need to boost the other players up to account for an absence like that. So things like that is what we're looking for. Whereas if the same situation occurred with Victor Cuesta, who I believe is suspended this week against Santos, he's at 5.5%. It's an easy replacement for him. Another player will come in at a similar value, and there's no major disruption to the team. But if you take out a key goal scorer, then you have to look around and make changes.
And this affects your pricing in expected goals too, right? Not only
of course,
for any time for the scorer.
Absolutely. So the expected goals from Pinnacle will have adjusted the line to react to that, right? So that's already baked into this.
Good.
Okay.
And Jeevan, we when you do this kind of an analysis, you put some how do I say that? Let's put an example where Manchester City, you have Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne. Of course, when we have De Bruyne, we have more probably to Haaland make more goals or something like that. And when you do this kind of precipitation, you do this analysis too to link some players. This always assists them and something like that.
Yeah, so we do look at it more on an individual basis. So someone like Man City, yes, De Bruyne is a key assister, and if he's fit and it's a big game, you'd expect him to play. But Erling Haaland will score goals regardless, seems to score goals regardless of who's providing him. I think that what you're asking is probably covered by the Pinnacle line. So the expectancy, if De Bruyne and Haaland are in the team, then the goal expectancy will shift up, and then the prices will shift automatically. At the moment, we'd have Haaland in for around 44% of City goals, which is a phenomenally high total, because that means that you can only put in players like Mahrez, or I know he's on his way to a different club, but Mahrez or Kevin De Bruyne at around 12%. Whereas if you took Kevin De Bruyne out of Manchester City and you put him in, even if you put him in Manchester United, he's going to be taking out 20% at least. But because of the influence of Haaland, it depresses his percentage.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
And Haaland is the biggest probability scorer that you have ever seen in your calculation?
No,
you said something like 40 and so percent, right?
He is, but don't forget, Manchester City are very successful and they score an awful lot of goals. If you have a player in a team, say in Australia, Melbourne City have got a player called Jamie McLaren.
Yeah.
They don't score as many goals, but he scores almost
all
of
the
goals. Okay.
Yeah.
So he'd be up like nearly 50%. A couple of seasons ago in Holland, I think Venlo, there was a player who went on to play for Chelsea, for Celtic, called Giacomakis, Greek striker. He was golden boot in Holland for a team that got relegated. He won the golden boot for a relegated team. His percentage was over 50%.
Okay. In Manchester City, we have a lot of players who score goals, right?
Correct. Exactly that. So to be 43% in a team that scores as many goals as Man City is a truly phenomenal effort.
I want to ask you now about a term that we use here in Brazil. I guess in English it's different. It's about the juice. In English, I guess
Margin.
it's the margin, something like that.
Yeah.
Nah? How does it work in a provider of odd industry? You send to your clients the odds with the juice, or the each book has one, you know?
Both is the answer. The feed that we send will have prices with juice, without juice. They'll also have the actual percentage that we've given for the player in that team, and they'll also have that particular goal expectancy figure for the player. The feed has all of those, so the operator can choose how they wish to integrate the feed. They can either choose to take our prices with juice and just push straight out to the client, or they can choose to take our prices without juice and add their own margin ladder. Or if they have their own models, they can choose to take our goal percentage or player expectancy value and seed that into their own model to produce their own unique pricing and markets. All of those things happen with our clients.
Okay, you send everything, and the bookie choice, right? Chooses.
Correct.
Okay. I have a question for you about of a Brazilian tipster here. He would like to know if it's common odds maker following big bettors, Instagram, Twitters, and something like that he identify as a big player, you know, a one player.
Yes, absolutely. The operators will be looking at Twitter in the same way that we do. They will know what the tipsters are betting. They will be able to see the patterns of different groups of bettors if they're subscribed to a particular Telegram or whatever it may be, and receiving the same odds information, because it's very easy to spot people with the same betting patterns. And they absolutely will scan Twitter. I know this for a fact, for warm players information and any tips that are shared on social media or even within private groups.
For that, do you have some algorithm to scan Twitter and Instagram, or is just some person who into this social medias and look for this kind of thing?
You'll build, there's no specific, as far as I know, there's no specific data mining going on, but it's a case of building up a list of people that are influential or warm within a particular market, and then just having someone monitor that list. It's quite easy to pick patterns, because if you see bets coming in that you either are unusual or are popular with a group of people, then you can go into backwards reverse search who's given the information, and then you can start to compile a list that way too. Good.
And you look for the winners, right? Because the losers don't matter, right? In this case.
No. It's
or
not the case.
Everything. It's more the money pressure, or the real
not so much the money pressure. More to do with it's to do with the players being having an edge over the bookmaker. And if the player the bettor knows something that the operator doesn't, maybe it's a positional switch, maybe it's a new penalty taker, or just purely the price is wrong. Even if it doesn't win, and don't forget there was a lot of variance with these markets because they're high odds markets. Even if it doesn't win, that player is still dangerous to the bookmaker, because over time, in theory, they should be able to they probably can win off the bookmaker. So it's not a case. It doesn't matter if it's consistent losing bets if they are beating the closing line, if you like.
Okay, and a particular question. Let's say this. It's a big odds market, right?
Yeah.
Ignoring Haaland, it's a big odd market.
Yeah.
Do you think that this influences the higher juices or not? Not necessarily.
It's generally a high. These markets tend to have higher levels of juice. They do, because there's more scope for error than there is in a 1x2 or a handicap line on a straight match. Traditionally, these markets have been heavily juiced, but again, it's up to the operator. Now they've become very popular with operators, even in Brazil. You'll find that some of them will be more competitive, and they will reduce the juice to create a more competitive product. And we see that in Europe. Whereas the Premier League, some of these markets are actually very, very tight. Especially around the top end. There's not an awful lot of juice whereby you used to get away with a lot more.
Yeah, I asked it because in handicapping, we have the pinnacle in Asian handicap already in football. We know that it's we know the percent of the juice, right? And if you translate this for the odd 4, it will be more cheats than odd 1.80, 1.90.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
Yeah. So the way we apply the margin or the juice is not in a straight line, not linear. It's like a bell curve. So you apply more juice to the shorter, the top of the market, and if you applied, say you apply 5% juice to Haaland, right? That may not that's you cannot then apply 5% juice to Kyle Walker, because 5% juice to Kyle Walker will shorten his price so much from say 80 to 1 to say 14 to 1. So you have to apply it on a curve. So if you apply 5% to a player who's even money to score anytime, and then down to say 1.5% for a player who only has a 2% chance of scoring the goals. Okay, so it's not linear. So it's very difficult to. While you say pinnacle, you can easily extract what the percentage, what the show for the market is. It's not. You cannot easily do that with the goal scorers because you don't understand what what kind of curve has been used to produce the margin. It's not as simple, but as a rule, yes, there is more margin.
Understood.
It will be always exponential distribution for that kind of market, right?
Yeah. There's a different distribution, and then we have different curves within our margin model as well, depending on other factors.
And what do you think about the CLV theory, the close line value? Do you think that this kind of thing influences your prices, and how you handle with this?
So closing, it influences how the underlying prices are put into the system in regards to the team expectancies, because those are, if Pinnacle are using closing line prices and then they adjust each week based on that, then that's all going to be baked into the feed we take from them, right? But in terms of our goal score prices, unless there's been a significant message from an operator as to, this player is very, very popular with bettors in Brazil or Chile or whatever, then invariably the closing line prices, we don't really worry too much or analyze those, because it's difficult to compare like it is with a match, because each team's expectancy for each match is going to be different. So it's very difficult. We can adjust the percentages, and after every game we review, and we'll look at the formations, and we'll look at how close we were to 100% of that starting lineup, and then we'll make adjustments based on that. Or if it's a cup game and we know that Kino Suarez is not going to play, like Copa Sudamerica or something like that, and Janderson is going to start, then we won't give Suarez as much because we don't expect him to start, and then adjust things like that. But closing line value for goal scorers, not such a thing really.
Okay.
I'm just do a question. Our last guest on our podcast, they talk a lot about the hype of some fighters because they specify MMA.
Yeah.
In anytime marketing, do you have some kind of think with that just to?
So what you're talking about is a bias towards players who you know are going to be popular with the bettors.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess certain matches there's an element of that. A good example of that will be Messi for Inter Miami against Cruz Azul in the Leagues Cup this week. I think it's fair to say that every operator in the land will add or want to add additional percentage to Messi's price because they know he's going to be the only player of interest to the entire book. So if you don't do it that way, if you don't add a bias to something that's so extreme as that, you're going to end up with a very, very one-sided book. So I think there is an element of that, although if you use a normal EPL game, so Man City, so Haaland, yes, he's going to be popular, whatever, but that's kind of already baked into his price. And once you add the margin in, you're not scared of taking those favourites on if you've got the right percentage because you've still got a nice margin in there. So provided you're not too big, the price, then it's fine. And we don't tend to overly bias the selections based on popularity.
Okay.
Good.
Like Neymar when he moved to PSG too, right?
Yeah.
The hype was big.
Hype was big. Performance was moderate.
Yeah. And let's say about you and Abelson. That's right.
Yeah.
You said the markets that you offer, right, for the books and things like that. Are you looking for other opportunities to provide odds on other markets, like handicap, over and unders, and things like that? Or you will be in here score goals?
So we do. So no. The answer to handicaps, over under, no. That market is ultra competitive. We don't need to be compiling those. We can take those in off a price feed. Our specialty, and those markets, don't forget, can be automated to an extent using closing lines and probabilities and rankings. You can work out match odds pretty simply. So there's not a massive amount of resale value in us for that. But where the skill of our compilers is in essentially manual database management. Because if you think about the level of coverage, if you take, say, Peru or Chile or Ecuador, there's a lot, just a transfer window, there's a hell of a lot of squad changes. So you're constantly having to work on these things. So that's where our niche is, that's where our skill is, because it's a manual process. And that's why we exist. We're a small company in a very, very competitive world dominated by some huge suppliers. But we survive because we do the manual stuff very well. We're not interested in handicaps 1x2s, but we are interested in other player markets. So we do, for Brazil, for example, Serie A, we do we do player cards. So and that's been fun. That's been really fun, especially given the investigations that are going on in Brazil regarding player cards. And we saw some of that last season. Some of the ones that have been pulled out. We knew that they were. So one of the biggest. It's not a fix. It's not a fix or anything like that. But it is a a nuance of the system you have for suspensions is if a player is on 2 bookings, and obviously every 3 bookings is a suspension, right? So if a player is on 2 bookings or 5 bookings, and then they are playing a team the week before their parent team they're going to play, okay, if they're on loan, then you're almost guaranteed they will pick up that booking in that game, so that they're going to be suspended for the game against their parent club because they can't play in that anyway. Yes. If you look back last season at the instances of that this happened, I think bar the last game of the season when it wasn't like it was the end of the season, it didn't matter. I think it was 100% hit rate for these players getting booked in the match before they played a parent club if they're on the tight line.
Okay.
Like so we have to accommodate for things like that because it's crazy how like you get players that don't even come on the pitch. They get booked. There's one last week who didn't come on the pitch. So for betting purposes, he wouldn't be included, but for suspension purposes, he will now be suspended. He was suspended versus his parent club, and like we've learned that I've never seen that before in a league quite so blatant as it is in Brazil. So things like that sort of stick out, and you notice it and have to work around those situations. So the player at the start of July that this happened to, go back and have a look at the footage. It was Ronald. It's Cuiabá. Is it Cuiabá?
Cuiabano.
Okay. So he was on 2 yellows. And then this was the weekend of July the 7th. I think he picked up a yellow card. Yeah, he was booked in stoppage time from the bench. Oh. So he picked up his ban in stoppage time from the bench, which meant he missed the game against his parent club, which he couldn't have played in anyway.
Yes. That happens a lot in Brazil. Incredible. So that too. So player cards are interesting in Brazil, but also very popular. We also do, and at the moment, this is just for Palmeiras games in Serie A. We do player assists and player shots on target for a client. So Brazil is becoming of real interest to us.
But I wanna get an answer for you. I want to do a question for you that you said it's a manual handicapping, let's say like that, right? That's the motive that you don't expand for all the leagues, something like Brazilian Serie D, the 4th division here in Brazil. We don't have score goals, right?
No, we do Brazil Serie B, and this year we did the Paulista, the Carioca, and the Mineiro.
Yes.
Okay, for the first time ever. We did those leagues for goal scorers, and some of those leagues include Serie B teams in, and they are very difficult. But the biggest problem that will stop us doing below Serie B, it's because the data is just not there. There's no settlement data. We can't get accurate settlement for the regional leagues, even the Paulista or the Carioca. The settlement is very difficult to get. The leagues need to be better at providing the data.
And the transfers that affects too much here too, right? Something like the players, a lot of transfers.
But we can cope with that to an extent. We've got good sources for the squads. The biggest problem is how do we settle the markets? If we can't settle the result with the end of the match, we've got a problem. The customer doesn't like that, but we cannot rely on some of the fees, especially in the regional leagues. It's very difficult, and that holds us back from coming down to Serie C, certainly.
Okay. Which kind of structure you need to cover some league? You have to get to hire. How many people and the structure of data you have to buy some API, a database?
No. We use a selection of trusted sources. So Opta have got good squad management. Sites like Soccerway or Transfermarkt, very good squad management. So we use a combination of those. Soccer Association in the UK, very good as well. FBref, another one which uses Opta data now. So amongst those, we can build the squads together. and keep track of the transfers. That's not really, we've never really had a problem with that at all. Even when during COVID we picked up coverage of the Nicaraguan and Belarusian league, we were still able to produce the squads. So it's not that. It helps to have a Portuguese or Spanish speaker for the compilers, and I have one, Miguel, who lives in London but has Colombian heritage, so he works on a lot of Latin leagues, and obviously can speak the language. So speaks Spanish, and I'm sure he can speak some Portuguese too. So it helps there, but you know, a lot of it is we use Google Translate for like Russian or whatever we're doing, Chinese league, Japan. You know, Greek as well is a difficult one, but we can do it all with translations.
Okay. And another thing about that, you said the expensing leagues, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Australian. We have, I don't know, 20 leagues or more, right?
Yeah, but there's only one of any significance.
Yeah, but that's what I wanna ask. Something like the, I don't know, small league in Australian, you will lose a lot of effort, right? A lot of money to do it, and the people won't look.
No.
That's right too.
So you're talking about state leagues in Australia, and they're part time. So it's your striker will also have a job as a mechanic, or he might be on a stag do for the weekend and not be able to play. So you're never going to be able to keep up with all of those nuances, and also those players, they're not really contracted per se to the clubs, so they can come and go as they want, and the squad might, like you say, it would just be a nightmare, and there's no demand for that. We add leagues based on customer demand, which essentially comes from either the punters requesting it or the operators thinking that the bettors will want it, and that's how we expand. And that's why this year we're going to have to pick up the Saudi Pro League, because they're taking all the players.
And it's a evolution of the market too, right? A few years ago, you will remember that the corner market, you only had it on big leagues too, and then they started to expand for basically everything nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brazil is a fine example of how sports betting fever has gripped the nation. It is absolutely, Brazil is one of the most important countries for European sportsbook now, who has any operation over here. And there are lots, right? There are lots of bookmakers that have European roots that operate in Brazil. A lot of the big ones do. And it is a huge market for them, a huge growing market. And obviously with the presidential change with Lula, then we hope to see finally that the regulation is signed and things can get on board.
Do you think that the regulation being assigned will bring more bookies from England, from here? What do you think about it?
I think that if I was operating a betting operation in Europe, I would want to have an operation in Brazil. The population size, the passion for soccer, for football, it's unparalleled. So you'd want to either buy an existing operator. I don't know, you've got ones that we don't have, like PixBet. I'm not suggesting you buy them, but other operators are there too. You'd look at investing into one that's already established and has a market share. Their values must be through the roof now. Or you take a big name and you make a splash yourself within a regulated market, whereby some of the likes of the bookmakers who can't get a license, then they'll be pushed by the wayside. I think one of our most successful partners over there is Betano at the moment. They seem to be doing really well in the whole of South America, to be honest. Very
Betano grows a lot. Few months.
They're very good. Very good. They've been, since we started dealing with them, they've been fantastic. You can understand why they've done so well in so many different countries outside of Europe now.
They use your odds provided, Betano?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Good. Nice one. And what Abelson Odds are looking for the future, and I wanna you say to the advantages for a bookmaker to contract a Abelson Odds service instead of making their own data team.
Yeah. So, like we said earlier, if the operators use us because our coverage is extensive, the most extensive in the industry. Our accuracy is unparalleled within the industry. We have flexibility for adding competitions on demand. For example, Saudi Pro League, also looking at Asian Champions League. The inputs that we spoke about can feed any number of solutions. So either an algorithm on the operator end or a straight pass-through of my juiced odds. The squad management is a huge manual task, and we're very good at it. And so for that reason, it makes sense for the operator to pay us a fee rather than employ 15 people, 20 people to produce the same product, which is,
And it won't be the same because you will need to train them, right?
And you need to train
let's say I hire Lucas to do it for me. He has no idea how to start. Let's say, and that's right too, right?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, and then you've got to arrange all the deals with the different data companies for solutions for settlement. You've got to set up a technical feed. You've then got to integrate to partners. It's a big task. So we like to think that we offer that the best in the business currently for this particular niche. And you can absolutely contact me, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm sure you put my details on the bottom of the video. I also will be in Miami at the end of October there's a big SBC Latin American show in Miami where we expect there to be a lot of Brazilian, not just Brazil, but South American operators in attendance. So I will be there as well. So if anyone is going there, then look me up.
Have you ever been on Brazil?
Never. I'm very keen to come though. Fantastic.
Yeah. Sometimes you had to be here. Yeah,
I'd
it would be a
love
pleasure to receive you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I'll probably remember that.
This is a really good question here. We know the odds and lines in betting industry are always moving and changing and things like that. As a provider of odds, how do your team handle with this? Do you provide the algorithm to follow the way the market goes? Or do you just give the odds and the bookmakers do this kind of job? Let's say a lot of money entering here in Holland, let's drop this odd, or you already keep doing the job, right? You don't just give the odd and that's it.
So there are two aspects to the question. The first aspect is if the match prices are changing, then that's handled by a live feed that we spoke about for expectancy and supremacy, and that will automatically update the inputs for the goal score prices. So if there's a change if there's a big gamble on Man City, then their prices will shorten, the other team's prices will lengthen. In terms of specific price management, we have a network mainly using Slack Messenger, but also email. With our clients, and they will feed back to us if there is a situation whereby they've seen a lot of money for a particular player. We had a message earlier from a big client about a player in the Women's World Cup, which they'd seen significant money for. So we make a small change, and then everyone benefits from that collected data. We can't actively manage each individual operator's risk book because we don't have access to that. And so there is an element of we send the prices, we'll update them to our best knowledge, and then the operator will handle any further risk management at their end. However, if you take our prices in play, so we offer in-play goal scores for all of Brazil Serie A, for example, and then you'll get that as soon as the teams are announced, then those teams will be analysed straight away and whittled down into 100% of that team's expectancy for the starting team. And then we manage that feed throughout the life expectancy of the game. Although the operator still handles the pure risk because we can't see the bets.
Okay, understood. Good. We want to change the conversation here. The Jeevan provider lives and the Jeevan's better comes in. Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to give us this point of view of a bettor. What are the best angles that bettors can take advantage on this type of market? I mean, score goal and first you score, last you score, 2 or more, 3 or more things.
Sure. So, as we explained earlier, that this is a fairly high marginated but high juiced product, right? So it's very difficult to beat the book straight up. So you need to think a little bit outside of the box, a little bit cleverer in order to try and beat these markets. And the best way to do this is by understanding a positional change that hasn't been reflected by the bookmaker or the operator. And this may be something like your normal left back is playing left wing.
Yes, I already did some bets like that.
Exactly. So if you could identify a player who is playing significantly out of position in favor of the attacking sense, this is the best way to completely beat the odds, because the odds will be wrong based on the fact that that player has played his career at left back and then he's suddenly playing higher up the pitch. So, but therefore his chances of scoring are greatly enhanced. As I said before, it's a high variance game, but there are opportunities based on that. However, and there's one thing that started to creep to go against that theory a little bit, and that since the 5 subs rule was sort of brought in and accepted by everyone, that means that the average amount of minutes a player spends on the field has come down. Okay, and so if you do have a player playing out of position, say a left back playing left wing or even centre forward, the chances of them playing the full 90 minutes in that position is probably not quite as good as it used to be when there were 3 subs, right?
Yeah, so it's different rule, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when you think about these bets, bear in mind that the supplier or the operator has priced this player to be playing for the entirety of the match, the 90 minutes. Now, if you're going to get 90 minutes, you've got more more chance to score, right? Because you're on the field for longer. But if you're only on the field for 60 minutes, the prices are all different.
Yes.
You've only got 60 minutes to make an impact. So you need to be a little bit careful of that. If you've got a player playing out of position, they are more likely to be subbed. However, if the player's price, say 50, and it should be more like 7, it's absolutely worth the gamble. The other angle is to look out for operators who don't use us, who don't really keep up to date on a week-to-week basis with the squads. So you can get 10, 12 games into a season, even 15 games into a season, and you can see a pattern around certain players are having a better season than before in terms of attacking prowess. And an operator who might not have time or is lazy has not updated either a slight positional tweak or the fact that the player is more active in the attacking sense this season. And if you can identify that, then you can also be profitable. And there's an example last season of a player which actually benefited me very nicely in a German league for Augsburg, a player called Arne Meyer, who he scored 5 goals last season, Arne Meyer. If you look at his record prior to that, he'd scored 1 goal in 103 appearances. So there were lots of operators who were offering huge prices. I had a winning bet on him at 50-1. First goal, 50-1. Huge prices for first goal anytime. But he was playing slightly higher up in midfield and sometimes was playing wing than his usual sort of more defensive position. And every week he was the wrong price with the bookmaker. So you get a run of, you're going to get 5, 6, 10 games of this player playing out of position at 50-1, 28-1, 33-1, 60, and then you can have a run at that player because that the bookmaker, unless you're going silly and you put a huge bet in and it alerts them, if you keep under the radar, you can keep having that bet because they're not updating their system or no one else have noticed that player, and you can have a free run at huge prices.
Okay. So you think it's easier to be a winner using subjective parameters than data parameters, right?
It depends how good you are with data, and then how reliable your data source is. Because you'd have to, in order to beat the book, you'd have to have a fair advantage.
Because the juice is high too, right? This affects directly the lines.
So I'd say that if you have the ability to create a model whereby you can crunch the data, then absolutely you should do that. But then it's going to be I still think your most advantageous bets are going to be due to incorrect positions or lazy pricing on terms of operators who aren't looking every week at what's going on. So that's the way to look at things, I think. But yeah, absolutely. If you can build a model and get your own prices for a match for goal scorers, that's a great way to start. And then that gives you a reference point. Then if some other operator is a huge price about a selection that you have like 10 to 1 and they're 50s, then you can investigate it further and see, is it you, is it them? And if it's them, have small wages, keep under the radar, otherwise you'll get shut down.
Okay. If you were to start now betting, would you start in big leagues or small ones, and why?
Small ones.
Of course.
Small ones, but
he answered quickly.
Yeah, I said, yeah.
They don't think about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about it because you get shut down really quickly if you're in a smaller league. But the opportunities for error are far greater in a smaller league that doesn't have as much attention. And so you're more likely to find errors in a smaller league. However, my example there was the German Bundesliga. That's a big league. And yet you can still find opportunities. And if you can find an opportunity in a big league, you're going to be able to get more money down because there's more money in that league anyway. So you're not going to be as noticed. So there are pros and cons for both approaches. But if you understand a smaller league really well, then you are likely to have a small advantage anyway. Yeah.
On this case, we have the disadvantage when we have some kind of notes, right? Informations about that, because as you said about the regional regional stuffs, we for me, I'm living on Minas Gerais. I'm on the state of the Mineiro Championship.
Wow.
So probably I have more information than another person because I live on here. So for you, on this case, I have to start to bet on this kind of championships, right?
I would say that, Lucas, that would be an ideal place for you to start because we don't have anyone living there. And so we aren't so familiar with the teams there and the formations and the really localized news as to who's going to play for. Because even in those regional leagues, the big teams, the Serie A teams, don't always play their strong teams, right? So if you can understand that and then understand who's good from the Serie D teams or whatever, then you definitely have an edge.
Okay, good.
Another thing too, in big leagues, you need to beat the bookie and beat the other models, right? To form another players that are more experienced than you. I think the word too.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to
starter.
What you mean in terms of someone else beating you to the prices and the prices vanishing, or?
Yeah, kind of too. I mean that if you were started, your system, your model is very low comparing to the big syndicates and things like that need to operate this kind of leagues.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to start on your own. Absolutely, yeah. So I guess you need to just be understanding that you're going to have to make a lot of changes to your model at certain points, but you need to try and find a point of value that you think you've found that not many others have found, but then also be aware that point of value is likely to erode or change at any time. And you need to be able to realize quickly that your edge is gone and not keep throwing money after your edge, which is actually vanished.
Yes, that's the problem too. I think a lot of players don't have the idea about his edge.
Yeah.
Just think this has plus EV and that's it.
Yeah.
They don't, and it's not that simple, right?
No, it's not that simple. Not so, especially with like high juice prices like goal scorers, and there's so much variance. You really need to have it's no good if you can find a player that's hugely incorrectly priced 1 week. That's great, but you want to be able to have that player incorrectly priced for 10 games to be able to keep betting into it to maximize the value. But another tip, if a game is in play and you have an operator who hasn't got anyone watching that game or paying any attention, if like Arne Meyer, the example there, he scores the first goal, if the bookmaker's not doing things properly, then he will be a huge prize to score the next goal. And so you can bet again in play, okay? So you need to watch out for things like that too. There could be value in play.
That's a nice tip too. Let's move on here for the topic, advice for novice bettors. Jeevan, what advice do you have for novice bettors looking to enter these markets and this industry?
It's difficult for novice bettors, as we've explained. I think the most important thing is if you are truly a novice, then you need to just enter the markets very gently. Obviously we respect responsible gaming, but you need to be more of a watching brief than a getting involved brief, or don't get carried away with early success, because that success could just be variance driven. It could just be complete luck. If you have a theory on a system, then you need to test that system gingerly. That's to mean carefully. And also, like we just said, if you think you do have an edge, then by all means increase stake to a point, but also be aware that edge could go overnight, and then you're throwing money at a negative EV. So you have to sit back, watch, understand, but also be willing to act at the right time. It's a tricky thing. But the main thing to do if you're a novice is to really understand the fundamentals of how the markets are derived. If you can understand how a bookmaker has derived their prices, or how they go about producing prices, as the way I've just explained to you for goal scorers, then you can understand better how there could be errors, or where the errors can be, and how to beat those books as well.
Yeah, and another thing that I have for me in this kind of market too, for novice bettors, he needs to start with subjective in small leagues. Like Lucas doing the second division for Mineiro. If you live there, of course you will have more information and more edge. Then you try to work in the Atlético Mineiro and Cruzeiro Brazilian first division games. I think it's kind of this, and you don't have all the study, all the parameters, the data to create a modeling too.
No, you won't have any historical data, but if you haven't got historical data, it's unlikely the bookmaker will have historical data. And with these regional tournaments, with some of the teams in them, the historical stuff is really fairly irrelevant, because the teams change their composition so much each season, so much. Even in Serie A, Serie B, the whole team can be changed in a season. So you look back, last season they did this, but last season there was these players. This season, none of those players are there. Yes. It's important to look out for that.
Let me just go back a little bit. You have talked a lot about how a model can become outdated, right? How you and the Abelson blind your company, blind you to against that outdated kind of thing.
How do we keep up to date? Is essentially
yeah, exactly.
Again, the model, the actual pricing model, it's the way, that's the fundamentals really. That's not changed. The pricing model doesn't necessarily change. It's the inputs that you put in. The model is only as good as the inputs. Okay. So provided you're using inputs that are up to date, and are accurately reflecting what's happening, then the model, the underlying maths is not changing. Okay. But if you're talking about a model to try and find edges, then yes, there are different components to that, but that's not essentially what we're doing. We have a model that produces mathematical pricing based on certain input parameters. As long as our parameters are accurate. So to answer the question in the terms of how do we keep it up to date, we keep it up to date by keeping each team database up to date, by making sure we understand the transfers, by making sure we understand the suspensions, and that we can reshape the teams if key players are missing or have moved away from the clubs. And that's a daily job for all of the compilers. You know, they all have a league each, or several leagues each, and that they work only within those leagues.
Good. And have you been using this new AIs we have seen in our days to increase your model, your database, or something like that? Or?
Honestly, no. I'm not naive enough to think that AI won't play a role going forward, and it may help or hinder suppliers into the market, but it's not something we've considered. Our systems are fairly tried and tested, and as I say, fairly manually based. There's possibility you could make some shortcuts, but equally by doing the manual daily stuff, that's when it goes in here, and that's when you understand. We manually look back at a game. We'll look back at a game as an individual and assess, you know, based on that. And I think that if you do that, if you start automating too much, you lose a lot of that
the power of your mind.
of the league. Yeah, power of the mind, understanding of the league, understanding of the players, and that kind of reflection. So I'm not anti that kind of thing, but at the moment it's not something we use.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Another thing, Jeevan, if you could go back in time and start all over again in betting, but your current knowledge, okay, what steps would you take? It's kind of hard question too.
It's a tough question because I'm not a big bettor. Okay, I'm a very small bettor. I like to have a bet, but I'm not in any way have ever been a professional gambler, and would never ever choose to do that. So I think to answer the question, really, I would answer it from a other side of the fence. So a supplier. So me working in the industry, I would honestly, anyone who's looking to get involved with our industry, I think look to get involved at a level whereby you could end up working for a bookmaker. There are lots of opportunities within operators, businesses that could excite you and keep you fulfilled, as well as supporting your own punting going forward. You can still have a bet if you're working for an operator with other people. You can bet with others. But I'd honestly, this is a great industry, and if I started again, I would do very little different to what I've done now, because I went into the industry as on the bookmaker side, and I guess I'm still there as our supplier, and that's where I find that there's the most peace and tranquility and the most enjoyment of the game, which I love. You know, I wouldn't be getting onto the. I haven't got the cojones for the gambling side of it, really.
It's a different way to think. It's to our public see this kind of thoughts. Yeah. I mean, you can use, like, it's a great platform to understand and to learn sports betting and to have a go. That's likely to then be able to project you into a role within an operator, definitely. But long term, I think it's very difficult. And things like Lucas just mentioned regarding AI, that's going to make the job of a bettor more harder and harder as we go forward, as operators will be the first ones to open their wallets and spend money on this kind of stuff.
No, of course. I think that's true. Do you have a specific tip for Latino operators interested in expanding their markets with Abelson Odds or something like that?
Absolutely. As I said before, I think that we're offering a huge range of markets in Latin America. and Latin and South America. We cover Mexico, a huge market for us, Mexico. Caliente we work with over there. USA, Canada now, Brazil, AB, plus the regional leagues. We do Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Copa Sudamerica in full from the group stage, Copa Libertadores in full from the group stage. So we have a huge presence in South America now. And if you want to improve your player offering as an operator, then absolutely you want to come and see us at abelsoninfo.com or contact me on my personal email or LinkedIn, which hopefully you guys will put on the video.
Sure. And if someone is watching this video and want to get your services, they just call you on LinkedIn or the website. It's that
website, LinkedIn, Twitter, email, which is Jeevan at abelsoninfo.com. So JEEVAN at abelsoninfo, one word.com. Please drop me a line. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to get hold of me. Twitter is a good one. LinkedIn, Twitter is how I was asked to do the podcast, for example. So that's at Jeeves Odds, at JEEVES ODDS, Jeeves at Jeeves Odds.
Okay. And that's it. Do you wanna say something more, Jeevan, about the market, about the Abelson, about you, or anything?
I think I think if anyone's still with us, they've probably had enough. No, I say we are expanding strongly, and it's our biggest area of growth in Latin America. I say 2 years ago we had 3 years ago we didn't do any Latin South America coverage. We didn't have Brazil, we didn't have anything, and now we have almost the entire continent covered with goal scorers. So it's a hugely expanding market for us. We're very excited to be here. We love the passion that's here. I was speaking to an operator big operator in Peru and Chile, and they were telling me that the revenue they see from those leagues is bigger than the revenue they see from the English Premier League. Now, if you go to Australia, the Australian A-League is not a bigger revenue driver than the English Premier League. English Premier League, like if you go to Austria, English Premier League is the biggest driver. But you come to South America, the leagues within your own country are huge markets, and that's exciting for the industry. It's really good to see.
It's the passion about soccer too, as we talked earlier.
Yeah, passion is like, that's why I want to come over.
Yes. So, Jeevan, we're done here. I appreciate your time, right? It's a huge interview. Okay, we like it a lot to be in here.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it with you guys. Thanks very much.
I hope you enjoyed it too, and sorry about the English here.
Your English is excellent. I've not misunderstood a question. I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay either of you. And it is, I don't have any Portuguese. Obrigado is all I have.
Então, pessoal, esse foi nosso terceiro episódio aqui. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Foi um papo muito bacana aqui com o Jeevan. Beleza? Pode se despedir, Luquinhas?
Galera, valeu demais aí. Nos vemos aí no próximo episódio. Agradecer também ao Jeevan por estar aí com a gente. E é isso.
Okay. And you, Jeevan?
Thank you very much. Obrigado. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we see you.